Hello and welcome to the Arsenal BiteSize Podcast. We are on Saturday morning, 30th of December, wishing you all a happy new year ahead. I'm joined by special guest Aaron, otherwise known on Twitter or X as @FPL Plonker. Good to see you back. I know I wasn't on the show when you came on with Clayton last time, so pleasure to have you, Aaron. Thank you for agreeing to join me in this festive period. I know it's not the greatest of times. I was hoping we'd meet after winning at Anfield and beating West Ham, but we're here to talk about 1 point in 6. So hopefully we can turn it around against Fulham, right?
I know, yeah. I think my first appearance with Clayton, I can't remember now, but I think it might have been just after the City win. So to come on after that and then compare it to now is stark contrast. But you got to take the good with the bad, haven't you?
Definitely. And I didn't want people thinking we weren't doing shows just because of dropping points and that we only record when we win. So obviously Clayton's on holiday with his family in Goa and he will be back for the Fulham review with me next week. But we had Hassan on to review the Brighton game when he was away. And then we've obviously got you on. Hopefully maybe over the winter break we can get Mike on as well as some of the guys from the chat and do a little viewers kind of season review. We're halfway point now. I think we have 40 points from 19 games. It's less points than we did from 19 games last year, but I think last year was a different kind of Arsenal, and maybe we can talk today about what our expectations for the season ahead are. Before we go right into it, quick shout out to Bungle. Evening, Happy New Year. So he's in Tokyo, quite
Evening,
late
Bungle.
there now. Yeah, definitely evening for him. And Mike Halpin, Happy New Year, lads. Night shifts for me, so going to bed. I'll catch this later on shift when I'm paid to watch it. I love it. Good job, Mike. I love it. So I've put the graphic of the 2-0 loss from West Ham, but I think before we go there, why don't we first start with Liverpool and just talk about the 2 goals? I know we won't spend long there, just a few minutes, because we want to keep this episode quite short and sweet with Fulham being just a day away. But yeah, I guess, how did you feel? Like, we went to Anfield, first few minutes, it felt like we got off to the dream start. We were going off after them, just like last year. As soon as the first whistle went, there was the Jesus shot that got deflected over for a corner. I think it was about a minute in or 30 seconds in. And we just looked like we were ready to go. And then, we got the free kick 4 minutes in. Odegaard free kick delivery. Gabriel Magalhaes leaps into the air like a salmon and straight into the net. Short VAR review, but nothing of concern. And there we go. Bob's your uncle. 1-0, 4 minutes in at Anfield. And it just felt like it was going to go well from there. But I guess, what were your thoughts? Were you impressed with the early start? Did you expect us to come out the blocks like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was very curious to how he was going to approach that game because it felt like last season, the narrative was a turning point was the Xhaka heated moment with Trent, wasn't it? We got the crowd riled up and it sort of shifted momentum. So I was thinking or wondering whether Arteta would try to really slow the pace of the game, control the game and get the crowd quiet so that we could sort of, mitigate that. But it didn't really go like that. It was a frantic game, but being as it's the highest scoring fixture in Premier League history, I suppose you couldn't expect nothing less. But yeah, I was very confident and I thought, we are the better team and we got that early goal. We've been quite good from corners of late, but it's one of those ones where a draw in the end, whereas last season it was crunch time and we couldn't afford to drop points, it felt a lot more gutting. Whereas at this stage, a draw still feels like a good result for us. So I was still positive about that game.
Yeah, I think I was positive overall. I think the way I see it is that we would want to win at Emirates and at least draw there, and they would probably want to win at Anfield and at least draw at Emirates. So I think of the two teams, we would have been the happier going out of that, to be real. We're talking about, obviously, we're disappointed in the 1 point in 6 this week, but I'm sure they will have equally been disappointed with their 1 point. With their 2 points in 6 against a struggling United at the time and us. Quick shout out as well to Pudding. Good to see you, buddy. We will come back to this question. There's a Q&A briefly at the end, so I'm going to star it so that we remember to come back to it, and we will timestamp the Q&A. So if you missed some of the show or you just want to see specifically what we think about whether Arsenal or Liverpool could win the title this year ahead of Man City, we will talk more about that. I definitely think we need to see some movement in January if there's any hope at this stage, but fingers crossed they'll surprise us. Just on their goal, I just want to briefly talk about Liverpool's goal, then we'll go straight into West Ham. So Liverpool's goal, I just thought I know Zinchenko got a lot of stick for this, and he was the one kind of marking Salah, and there was, there wasn't much he could do about it from my personal perspective. I appreciate defensively he's not the best, and he kind of makes up for it in what he gives us in fluidity going forward and in midfield. Him playing there next to Rice in that pivot kind of allows the likes of Havertz to play further up as well, where we've been seeing better performances from him. The issue for me was that Trent delivery is just insane. Like these are like the odds of something like that. And then on top of it, like Salah to score from that angle with the defenders around him. I'm pretty sure when you watched it back a few times, it does feel that Raya thinks that he's going for the far post. And I think most players from that position would go for the far post if they're cutting in from the right-hand side. But he went for the inside post and just smashed it into the net. And I don't think at that point Raya's footing was wrong. He was, I think essentially what I'm getting at is I feel he guessed before the shot was taken which way it would go. And when the shot went the other way from what he guessed, it was too late to move his footwork around and reposition and reset himself, I thought. So that was, that was my view of it. I just felt you can't take anything away from them from that goal. I don't think 9 times out of 10, someone makes the mistakes Zinchenko made there, and the delivery isn't as pinpoint as Trent's laser, and there isn't a world-class winger like Salah waiting to demolish you in one moment. So, I think in that perspective, I think from there they turned the screw as well, and I think we weathered the storm well. I think just in terms of data, I'll say on this match before we move on. Last year, I believe when I heard it, it was something like 3.5 XG that Liverpool got on us. So, they really, we were very fortunate to get that draw last year. Whereas this year, their XG was 1.04 on the Mark R Stats that we normally use, Mark R Stats spot on Twitter. And ours was 0.66. They had 7 shots in the penalty box. We had 8. So it felt like a far more even game in terms of reducing them to chances. And it was a bit more like the rest of this season has gone so far, right? With trying to maybe play for control, and we're not as attacking as we were or as fluid going forwards. But that's that game. I think 1-1, we would have taken it. We just thought business done. Let's not lose to Liverpool. Let's not lose to City. You're not going to win a title if you're losing both legs against your main rivals in the challenge. So let's go into West Ham, because this was then the lineup versus West Ham. So for the podcast listeners, it was the same lineup as Liverpool, but Havertz was suspended for his 5th yellow card. So Trossard came in. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, because I know there was a lot of talk pre-game about maybe Jorginho starting with Rice in a double pivot. What were your thoughts pre-game? Were you expecting a Jorginho kind of game, or were you surprised to see Trossard there in a more attacking lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I guessed Trossard out of the two, but I have been finding it a bit difficult to predict Arteta with his decisions, because there's games where I think, he's definitely going to go for Jorginho in the 6, and then he plays Havertz, and then there's games vice versa where I think Havertz is going to play and then Jorginho was playing. So I've not been able to pick up the pattern. But on Trossard, it's hard because I've been such a Trossard's supporter, especially pre-season, when I thought he looked amazing. I thought the midfield would be a thriving role for him, especially when we've got our front three all fit. But every time he starts there, he just looks a bit lost and it doesn't really impact the game. So I don't know how different it would have been with Jorginho, to be honest, because I think almost our entire team dropped stinkers against West Ham. But yeah, I wasn't surprised, but I just didn't know either way, to be honest.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I thought, it's at home. Surely, we've got what it takes to play the double eights, which are more attacking. It's fine. And I wasn't as convinced by Trossard playing in the midfield as I thought I would be. Most of the season, like you, I've kind of thought that was maybe his best position. I'd kind of like this two-footedness. It reminded me a bit of Santi Cazorla playing deeper in midfield back in the day. So I was hoping for more of that type of performance. But the more and more I look at it now, it feels like Martinelli is really struggling out there on his own on the left wing as well. And I am wondering whether Trossard going forwards this season might be better suited for us in that left wing role as an option there, or even as a striker option. I'm starting to wonder whether I was right about him being a good number 8 for us anyway. I'm not sure that he is. And I think this January, it sounds like we're in for a defender as a priority if we can. But after that, it's a midfielder. So maybe that says it all. I know Smith Rowe could play there. Vieira's been injured; he could play there in midfield as well. There's a Partey himself, obviously. El Nenny's injured. Like there are a lot of injuries, but with the 11 we put out on paper, you would expect a better performance. Equally, these are obviously like the festive congestion. I think the break couldn't come at a better time. We need to take this match and just like get into the January window and bring some of these injured players back. In terms of individuals, is there any individuals you want to call out? Maybe we'll spend a bit more time on West Ham because that was just 2 days ago. Liverpool, we obviously skirted over, but with West Ham, let's talk about their 2 goals maybe first, and then individuals in the Arsenal team. So obviously they took the lead when there was the Thomas Souček goal from the defensive mix-up. So that was really frustrating. I thought we got the leveler when Bukayo Saka hit the post, so that was even more annoying. Also, I noticed obviously the centre-back pairing, Ogbonna and Mavropanos. I didn't think that could keep a clean sheet against us. Boy, was I wrong. Equally, he was an old Arsenal player, so I didn't expect that to come back and haunt us with him to get the second goal to fully kill, the game off. One thing I will say is I was watching this with a mate of mine, an Arsenal fan, and when he saw Raya lining up for the penalty, he was like, how's the 5'6" goalkeeper going to save a penalty? And then like seconds later, he saved the penalty. So that was like the one good thing in this game, really. But yeah, what were you thinking? Because this game, if I just like the stats, actually, I'm going to read out the stats for this game because the stats are disgusting. Obviously, it was 2-0 to West Ham, but the XG from Marcar stats for Arsenal was 3.5. 30 shots, no goals. West Ham 1.69, 2 goals from like 6 shots. The expected threat for Arsenal 3.68 to 0.85 for West Ham. Possession 73% to 26%. Field tilt, I've never seen this before. 90% in their third compared to 9% in our third. What went wrong, man? Like, what the hell? Was it a defensive? I guess my question is, was it a defensive masterclass from Moyes and West Ham, despite the centre-back pairing? Or was it a lack of clinicalness from Arsenal in front of goal? Because, there was some really poor, tame shots. Like the numbers say we took 30 shots, but 20 of those 30 shots were blocked or off target. So, like, they were like putting their lives on the line, but equally, I felt we were taking too many touches. I don't know if you felt that way. There's a lot of times where I felt like we were trying to take too many touches in and around the box, and the shots we then got off were straight at Areola.
Yeah, I mean, before the game, I wasn't confident because I think West Ham have a really good team, and Moyes, although I think his away record to the Big Six is really poor, I feel like he's always suited quite well to play against teams like us because he is quite negative, he is quite defensive, but in transitions and counter-attacks, they've got such great quality that they could sting us. And then on top of that, they've got a set-piece threat, JWP from any corner or free kick, and they've got aerial threats like Souček and Dinos Mavropanos, so they could come back and haunt us with a bullet header. So I was worried, but saying that, I think it was more our own doing because I've never seen us play that badly before. I was luckily got a last-minute ticket to the game, and there was just so many sloppy, unforced errors just in the middle third, passing it off the pitch, completely giving it to the opposition. Even in the final third, there was like layoff passes that were just going out for goal kicks. I've never seen us that sloppily. I've seen us play sloppily for periods of games, and then we sort of bring it back round. But it felt like we were sloppy for 90 minutes. And then on top of that, although we did create chances, like you said, the finishing felt toothless. And I was watching the game thinking, we're going to score at some point. There's no way we don't score. And then as the minutes went on, I completely just had a humbling realization that we definitely aren't scoring because by the end of the game, it felt hopeless. We did have some good chances overall, but when I look back, I think other than the Jesus one, and you can maybe argue the Saka one hitting the post, and I think there was a Trossard.
Where he went just over the bar, from outside the box, I think.
No, there's another one where I think he managed to take a touch quite close to goal, and then he shot it straight into Areola.
So I'm thinking of the one in the first half, like 10 minutes in, but you're talking about the one that Ariel actually saved.
Yeah. I did forget that other Trossard chance, but yeah, like, none of them felt like really big, massive chances. So, I mean, we deserved to lose. There's no denying it. We played badly. Moyes' low block worked against us. And I think we just panicked. Like you said, there was too many touch in the box, too many overthinking things. And we didn't have a plan B. It's like we didn't have anyone who could try something different. Our sole reliance was on Odegaard to try something. And I think he had a bit of a mixed game. He done some brilliant things on Thursday, but then done some bad things as well. But I felt like if we were going to score, it was going to be something from him. But we should be relying on, or we shouldn't be relying on one guy. You know, we've got enough outlets and enough attacking power to have multiple routes to goal, and it just didn't happen. And it was, worst we've played in a long time, I think.
It was, and some of the stats that have come out since, obviously, it's quite disappointing stats, but it was David Moyes' first ever win against us in all competitions. It was 23 attempts he's had, 4 losses, 4 draws, 18 losses before that match. We also had 77 touches in the opposition box, which is the most on record since 2008 for a team who failed to score. So no one else has had like 77 touches since 2008 in a box and not scored. West Ham have beaten us twice in the same season for the first time since 2006. Because of obviously the cup game, they knocked us out as well. I thought we'd be trying to get revenge here. That didn't quite happen. And then we also lost for the first time at home in the league this year. So we hadn't actually lost. There hadn't been defeat in the Emirates. Our other 2 losses against both against Newcastle and Villa were both away, right? So our last home defeat was May, the 3-0 against Brighton, when our title challenge came crashing down. West Ham have won 3 consecutive Premier League games without conceding for the first time since February 2014. So they are in a rich vein of form. It's just very special. Now, we've ended the year, 2023. We end it, obviously, tomorrow to go across town. We're going to go to Fulham, Craven Cottage on New Year's Eve. It's going to be a big one. Oh, we've got Fella in the chat as well. Good to see you, buddy. You missed all the stuff we said about your book. Well, I don't know if you missed it. We're talking about your records that you smashed us, basically. Seeing as he's here, I'll give him one record about Ward-Prowse, and then we'll move on and talk about the individual Arsenal performances. So he's now Ward-Prowse provided 10 assists in all competitions this season. He's the second Premier League player to reach double figures after Bukayo Saka's 11. But also 8 of the 10 assists for Ward-Prowse have come from set plays, the most of any Premier League player. So only Saka and Ward-Prowse have reached double figures this season for assists in all competitions out of all Premier League players. So yeah, that's that game. But overall, what do you think, I guess, before we talk about Fulham predictions and lineup scores and all that kind of good stuff, what do you think the problem was? Like, is it something we can solve in January, or do we need to go with the players we have? So, it felt that I know people are saying like we're not missing anyone, we have a strong team, but I think the fact that we're in the position we are in the league table, despite the injuries, is testament to how much more depth we have than last year and the year before. So where we missed out on top 4 or missed out on first, a couple of injuries derailed those end of season runs. Whereas now we've played most of the season without, say, the likes of Partey, Tomiyasu's been in and out, Timber's been out all season. We've got Jorginho's out at times, El Nenny's out. Saka was out for a game, Odegaard was out for a couple of games, Jesus was out for a while, Martinelli was out for a while. Like, when you kind of add that all up, if that was last season, we would not be in the position we are now. So I think we've got to say, like, I definitely see growth in the squad and the depth, that we were able to still be here where we are despite all that. But I don't know if when some of them come back fit, if that's going to be enough to go on and win. So then the question is, what do we need in January if just the players returning isn't enough? Like, we have more depth now, but there's talks of us even being willing to sell Kiwior.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm a bit perplexed by that, to be honest, because we definitely can't afford to really do it in January if Tomiyasu is going to be going Asia Cup, or if he's injured, and we still got Timber out. I think we're down to like 5 senior defenders at the moment. So, I mean, I do personally think if we know that we get a fully fit Party, which is a big ask, and a fully fit Timber for the back end of the season, I think that will give us massive improvements. I know our problems have mainly been in attack, but I think that will have a knock-on effect. And we know deep down, Saka, Jesus, Martinelli is a very good front three. I don't know why it's not firing quite as well as last season. You can say tactical changes and whatnot. I do think we'll bounce back and we will be scoring more goals, because there has been games where I think it was Bournemouth 4-0. What else have been? There has been some 4-0s and 5-0s in us.
Was it Sheffield as well? Yeah. I thought the
Sheffield
games
United.
where we've really gone for it, though, like we've obviously done well in those games, but I don't feel the goal scoring itself was a problem, because I think you look at that game and the data we read out, right? 9 times out of 10, you win that game. Like, you simulate that game, you win. But that's the problem. That's what the data says. But my eyes told me something else. And the whole time, like you, when I was watching, I just didn't feel the goal was coming.
Yeah.
And that's what my eyes told me. So
Yeah.
I always say that if like the qualitative data seems in dispute with the quantitative data, dig deeper. Because normally, like, you see the quantitative data, it says we dominated, right? And we like pinned them in their box all game. But my eyes don't tell me that. My eyes told me that we were sloppy in front of goal and that they just wanted it more than us. So now I know there was controversial calls, and I've made a decision to not talk about it today because I'm just fed up of it every week. The fact that twice we've been, in a debate, I suppose, about an inconclusive decision of was a ball in or out of play. I just find that shocking when every other sport like cricket and tennis can figure it out with balls moving at the pace they do and the size they are. I know that there is a solution to fix it, which they don't want to do because it's too expensive. They can put a chip in the balls, basically, and that chip just tells you if it goes out the perimeter or not at all times, factually. The fact that I think that they had that, I believe, in the World Cup, and I don't think the Prem wants it because you need to replace the balls every game, and it's quite expensive. I've heard all kinds of bullshit rumors, though. People saying, oh, it's because the Premier League has a deal with Nike and they're only an Adidas ball, so they're not allowed to use them, but they're going to move to Puma, who do have the tech. And there's so much shite out there. And there's someone else saying, no, the big Premier League clubs like Arsenal, City, and Liverpool voted against it so they can continue pressuring referees to give them the calls they want. It's like it's just the stuff you hear. It's just proper tin foil crap, right? Like, my understanding is, I read a legit article months ago. It's a cost thing. It's got fuck all to do with people doing it so that they can try and control games by convincing referees to help them. That doesn't happen. Now, the point of that rant there was that essentially I just feel I wish there was more consistency. I wish in the biggest league in the world, where there's so much money from the TV and broadcast companies, that they would, just get the factual decisions correct. Like, it's just not excusable. Do you remember the season that Villa didn't get relegated and Sheffield did because of a goal that got scored that didn't get tracked? How did they not have the goal line technology switched on to know that the ball went in? And they didn't give a goal, and the team got relegated over that. Now that's madness. Like, that is actually mad. And this kind of shit happens in the Premier League all the fucking time. Like even still, like City concludes, like, they won their game last weekend very fairly, but you saw when the penalty shout happened, they all surrounded the ref. They all said, "What do you mean? Penalty, penalty, penalty!" And then he just gives a penalty. It's just I don't find it a very good situation. I think my final thought on it is, I feel that linesmen and refs are not making difficult decisions, Aaron. I don't know what your opinion on this. They're not making difficult decisions because they're relying on VAR to look at it and get the correct one. But then VAR looks at these decisions, they're inconclusive, and sticks with the on-field decision because there's no clear and obvious error, right? So I think we need to redefine clear and obvious so everyone knows what is clear and obvious error. What does that mean? Because it's such a vague wording. What does it actually mean? And refs need to make the decision on the match field because their VAR friends don't want to re-officiate the game. So if you say it's a goal or it's not a goal or it's in play or out of play, if they're not sure when they re-watch it, they won't change what the decision on field was. So these refs and linesmen, they're basically saying, oh, I'm not going to call this off out of play because maybe VAR will look at it. And then VAR looks at it and goes, shit, I don't have an angle, Oh, the linesman didn't put his flag up, so let's just say it's in. That kind of stuff pissed me off. Now, all of that aside, we deserve to lose. I didn't see us scoring whether that incident happened or not. So I'm not here to complain about the result. I'm just pissed about the fact that this keeps happening in the Premier League to many teams, not just us. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think the refs are doing what I suggested, which is relying on VAR to make a decision when they're not sure, but then VAR doesn't make the decision because it doesn't want to go against the on-field decision?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't want to rant too much about refs and VAR, but it's I think everyone's frustrated with it. But you can tell the proof's in the pudding when VAR always have to send refs to the monitor and then they always end up overturning their decision. It's not like a 50-50 thing. It's like the VAR just are scared to tell the ref they're wrong. So they're like, you come over to the monitor and then it looks like you've made the decision or you've seen it or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Newcastle one, just to quickly go back to that, it did look much more inconclusive. This West Ham one did look like it was out.
Yeah.
I know that leg obscuring it, and you think, why have they not got another camera angle? The technology is another thing, obviously. There's just so many things that could have easily shown us the truth. But yeah, I mean, we lost the game, so it's not something I care too much about. But
yeah, like end of the day, like we can't do anything about it. The match is gone. We, as I said, it's not an excuse. We deserve to lose. I think I do feel it's an anomaly game as well. Like I'd like to think we bounce back. I think the main thing I've noticed this season, and this will be a good kind of segue into the Fulham match to talk about that next, is when we were losing in Arteta's earlier years, we'd lose 3 games at a time. So you lose one, you knew you were going to lose the next match of 3 before you bounce back. This season so far, hopefully it stays the same now. But when we lost to Newcastle, when we lost to Villa, we bounced back well each time. We went straight back into it. We shook it off and we carried on. So I'm hoping that that's the kind of situation here where we've lost. It kind of gives us a bit of a shock to the system. And against Fulham, we go to their stadium, we go to Craven Cottage, and we just turn up. That's my hope and prayers. But whether that happens, I guess we'll find out tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, I think it's Fulham, Palace, Forest next 3.
Some winnable games, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, got Liverpool in the cup as well. But yeah, it seems like a nice opportunity to bounce back. And yeah, I've not seen us play that bad in a long time. So you can only hope that we don't play anywhere near as bad again.
I hope not, man. Honestly. So in terms of the game, why don't we talk a little bit about what we think, I guess, maybe the lineup was. So this is Fulham's lineup. For the podcast viewers, this is the lineup they put out against United in their last game. So that Leno in goal, Tete, Adarabioyo, Bassi, and Robinson in the back line. João Palhinha, Carney in the midfield, Reed, Pereira, and Iwobi behind Muniz as striker. So William was obviously out, but this is the lineup they put out last time. We looked at the lineup we put out against West Ham. I can't comment much on what I think will happen with the Fulham lineup. I can't profess to know too much about them. Obviously, I'm not sure if William's ready to be back, which is a big part of this. I think he's been really informed for them recently, so they definitely are missing him. You know, they won 2 home games, 5-0 back-to-back recently. Obviously, they've now kind of lost. So the question is, will Arsenal bounce back this weekend, or will it be Fulham who's bouncing back? In terms of our lineup, do you see any difference? Do you see just Havertz coming in straight for Trossard? Is that the only thing you can see happening, or do you expect any other changes?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a prediction thread for Jump the Wave on Twitter, and that's what I've gone with. I've gone with Havertz in for Trossard, and that's it. But I do think, you know, Arteta is that type of guy to punish bad performances and especially losses. You know, most managers tend to make changes when we lose badly. So I do think there's chances that Zinchenko or Martinelli, even Jesus, could be susceptible to a drop in. But just because of the opponent it is, like I can't really see a reason to play Kivior over Zinchenko, except just purely to punish Zinchenko. So I think Zinchenko will carry on playing. And then Martinelli, who has been out of form, you know, Reece Nelson looks positive when he comes on. I think he should have got more minutes against West Ham. So there could be something there. Like you said, Trossard could be potentially
like a left wing option,
left wing. Yeah. And then, I mean, Jesus, I think the least likely one would be Nketiah in for Jesus, but there could be a world where it happens. But I do think we'll stick to what we know and give the boys a chance to, get themselves back into form. Because Fulham, although it's an away game and no games are easy in the Prem, it should be one that we win and dominate. So if our front three can all grab a goal against Fulham and Zinchenko looks on it, then, it feels like we've healed or patched up the injury or the wound to us straight away. So
yeah, that's what we need. I think that's exactly it. We don't want these kind of losses to become loss streaks, and you can't sustain for the season like that. Obviously, talking about Mavropanos getting a goal against us, any thoughts about whether Iwobi or Willian makes a shock recovery and those two get on the score sheet against their old club as well? Do we need to be worried?
Yeah, I mean, after those back-to-back 5-0s, I was thinking Fulham looking really good. But then there's just a 3-0 loss, 2-0 loss, 3-0 loss. I think one of them was to Burnley as well. So
there was a 3-0 to Bournemouth as well, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to get a read on Fulham. But just on paper, the team is just nowhere near our level. So I was much more worried about the likes of Kudus and Bowen and Paqueta than I am of Iwobi and Williams.
Oh, yeah. That team scares me way more. So in terms of then score predictions, what do you think is going to be the score tomorrow? So I can go first. I'm expecting us to not keep a clean sheet. I'm expecting a 2-1 win or 3-1 win.
Yeah, I've gone for a 1-0 win. I think it's not going to be a complete and instant bounce back to our prime and best form. I think we're gonna look better, but we're still going to struggle. I think, there's been a lot of away games where we control it and really look like the clean sheet's going to be a banker. So I think it's going to be a scrappy 0-0 game. It's going to be similar to West Ham, where we're going to struggle to get the goal but create frustrating chances. But I do think we'll get the win. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope we just look fluid and we really score a good 2 or 3 goals. But yeah, I'm going for a 1-0.
Well, at least we're both predicting win. Let us know in the chats what you guys are predicting as well. I'm going to answer some of the questions that I've starred from the chat, and then we'll get out of here in a quick and snappy bite-sized episode. So Putin's question at the time was, do you think Arsenal will win the league or is it Liverpool? I wouldn't write City off just yet. They are the lowest they've been in the odds in years. But I do feel that draw with Liverpool and Arsenal will have helped them mentally. And the returns of players like De Bruyne soon and Doku and Haaland have obviously been out as well. But when everyone's back and ready, I do feel they'll crack on. But for now, I would say I feel that Liverpool play very direct. And so they give up possession a lot more. And Arsenal control a lot more, but don't seem as clinical and lethal in front of goal as Liverpool. So I feel both those teams have their flaws. Whereas with City, I feel they can control games and have superstars to score. So it's kind of like they are the one that I still think is the favourite despite their position. But if one out of Arsenal or Liverpool were going to win, if we just kind of imagine City didn't exist, then that's a tough one, because I feel as it stands without some additions in January, I don't think we can win it because we got not enough defenders essentially. Like until Timber's back and Tomiyasu's going to the Asian Cup, like there's just, I feel right now it's too hard for me to call. I know we're halfway through the season, but I feel like I need a bit more time to make a definitive shout. Like come to me in, like, say February, March, when we get into the run-in. That's when I'll be knowing where we're at. But I feel like my goal always was, and I think Clayton said it, is come February, March, just still be in the cups, like be in the last 16 of the Champions League or the quarterfinal, be a few points off first maximum, like by March. If we're in those kind of positions come then I'll be far more confident. But until then, there's still a lot of chinks in our armor that I want to see us resolve. I'm not saying they're unresolvable, but I want to see us resolve them. And stuff like whether Martinelli can come back into form in the second half, that will have a big impact on what will happen next. Just seeing if there's any other comments to read. They're not necessarily questions, but they're just comments from people. So we already kind of answered Bungle's one about will Willian or Iwobi score tomorrow. Fella said how we came away with 3 points and a clean sheet, I'll never know. Moyes ball. Yeah, but I had to put that up. And then Putin says Havertz is not a false striker, he's a false footballer. So I know he gets a lot of hate, Havertz, but I do feel that already what we're starting to see from him in the last few weeks, is quite good. And actually, in some ways, I think what we were missing against West Ham was his physicality. And I do wonder if Jesus, having had a Havertz to play off with him, would have performed much better. It felt that entire left pod was struggling without him there. So that kind of Zinchenko, Trossard, Martinelli left side, we were just very right side focused. And I'd like to think with Havertz back in, it will help both Martinelli and Jesus. But yeah, let's get out of here. We're 35 minutes in. We've done the Q&A as well. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, Aaron. It's lovely to have you here. Thank you to everyone for listening on your Saturday morning. We will be back next week for the Fulham review, and we'll preview the next league game from there. There's a big break in January, so we only play like 1 or 2 league games, and FA Cup comes back in. So yeah, let's just bounce back. Let's not let those wounds get worse, as Aaron said. And yeah, if you don't already follow Aaron, check him out on Twitter or X at FPL Plonker. But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you here, buddy. Hopefully I get to see you at the Emirates soon and we can go for a drink together before or after the game. But thank you everyone who tuned in, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, up the Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners.
Yeah, cheers for having me, Nima. And yeah, come on, you Gooners.
Come on, let's get that win.